Because our welding and our trade is so dangerous. You could be electrocuted, you could catch something on fire, you could burn up. So the very first thing that I'd want you to do is to make sure that when you start welding is that you have the proper welding attire. The right welding rod is only half of the process for right welding. The next is getting the settings on your welder set correctly. For years, it always happens every time I'm on a job site working, where people are in view of me welding. Sometimes they're looking for office building through doors, or walking down the sidewalk, or they're at a distance where they see me welding. They'll eventually come over, and when I'm taking a break or eating lunch or something, and say, "Hey, can I ask you a couple of questions?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know, I have a little welder at home, and I can't really weld very well. Could you show me or give me a couple pointers if I come by tomorrow after work or whatever, if I take a break, and can you show me some things?" I said, "Yeah." So this video is basically to help go over just a few brief items to maybe help you to get on a good track at home when you're trying to do those welding repairs around your shop. First thing I tell my employees, that the very first thing you need to do is make sure that when you're around your shop, whenever you're welding, make sure that you wear safety gear. Make sure that you have boots on that are leather, something that won't burn. Same thing for your pants, same thing for your coat. Make sure that you put safety glasses on. Make sure that you wear some nice leather gloves on the front and the back, especially because of the sparks. A lot of times people don't understand why that is, but you can see that my welding jacket, one of my older ones, you see the front of it, how it has all these holes in it. Well, all those holes came from the welding sparks as they sparked onto the clothing. So you want to wear the right clothing. You don't want to wear something that will melt to your skin or also catch on fire. So I always want to make sure that you're safe when you start that. The next thing is that I use a welding shield. This particular welding shield is electronic. On the inside, I preset settings. I hit on, I put my shield on. I always bring it down before I strike my first arc, so you don't flash your eyes accidentally. And that once this shield picks up that first arc, the moment I strike my first arc with it, it will sense that and turn dark, which protects my eyes. Now, for the illustration of what we're going to do today, I actually have an inspector shield. That way I can kind of talk a little bit back and forth without having to worry about flipping my shield up and down. So this is just strictly for inspection, and also for today would be instructional purposes. Now, the next thing is that I want you to know that every time you get welding rods, that there is a safe use guide that's contained within that container of welding rods that you get. It has, I think there's 5 different, on this front page right here, on things to look for to protect yourself from smoke, electrocution, just all types of different things here that's really good to read. Just don't not unfold it and set it over the side and think that's not important. It's very important. Always make sure that you read through that both sides to try and help protect your health and those people around you. The next thing is that you want to make sure that you're using the right welding rod. I have a 70-18 welding rod, and I also have a 60-10 welding rod. Now, the reason why I have more of these 60-10s is because that's what I was going to, I've actually already used on my illustration here on the metal already. All welding rods are not the same, so you don't want to go through and pick out one particular welding rod over the other. So we make sure that we have a 60-10 welding rod, which is what I would prefer to use around your shop. Now, I got this clamped on here already. Typically, all you're trying to do is to connect one piece of metal with the other. So like, for example, something broke off your lawnmower, your tractor, and you're wanting to stick it back on here and weld it to where it came off from. So that being the case, is where you got some pieces of metal. So what I want you to do is to practice so you can get better at it, is that you get your little clamp. Make sure that whenever you're welding something, you have some type of clamp to help hold the metal in place so it's not moving all around. The second thing is that you want to make sure that you have the settings set correctly on your welder. Only having the right welding rod is only half of the process for right welding. Now I'll show you where we're going to do the settings on the welder. Grabbing the right rod is only half of the battle of doing your welding correctly. The next is getting the settings on your welder set correctly. So I want you to walk over to your welder and make sure that's set on DC plus on this first setting right here. Then go over here to where you have your amperage setting. You notice that I've got this set at around 130 amps. We got a range between 80 and 180. So set that right there in the middle. And then if it's too hot or too cold, you can actually go over to the fine tune adjustment and go between 5.5 and 6. Now that we're going through the actual, we went through what type of rod we need, we went through what type of settings we need on the welder, we can actually get into the welding practice that I want you to do. I'm not really so much concerned with the aspect of welding two pieces of metal together with the practice. Typically what I've already done here is I set a piece of old angle iron up around my shop, and I started welding just a bead. I started right here in the middle and I started working my way back. The reason why I only did such a short weld here is because that's what I want you to do. Start with a very short weld. Don't go like 5 or 6 inches down. Do a little bit at a time. Stop. Clean that weld off so you can see what your pattern looks like. If you're seeing that your pattern is pulling pretty nicely, going back and forth, you don't have big runs in it where like there's a gap here, there's no weld, or most of the weld's over on one side or the other, and it's not continuous, then you want to go back and say, okay, I'm not doing something right. And what you want to do is just stop every about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, check your weld, clean it off, and then start again until you start getting it to look what would be a satisfactory bead. So what I want you to do is, in relationship like I was talking about on the settings on the welder, is that the hotter it is, the easier it is to strike an arc. And the next thing is that you want to have between a 60 and 80 degree angle of your rod when you start welding. You do not want to go straight in like this. That's what mistakes I did when I first started learning. The welder was too cold, the amperage, in other words, the amperage was set too low. And every time I stick the rod in, it would stick straight up like this, and I had to break it off. Stick it in, break it off. And that's what it looked like, bubble gum. I just couldn't weld at all. I got very frustrated because I never could get the arc to start moving. If you turn the heat up, it's much easier to strike the arc, and it's much easier to flow. Now, I've got thicker metal here, which is what you want to practice on, thicker metal, so you don't burn through it. Unfortunately, the hotter you go, if it is thin metal, it can actually push the rod all the way through the metal or cause it to blow a hole through it. So it's good to practice on thicker metal. So as you start practicing, moving that bead back and forth there a little bit, go to about 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, stop welding, clean it off, and look at it. See what your bead looks like. If it doesn't look good, if it's got big gaps in it, it means you're going too fast. You need to slow down a little bit. Take your time. That is one of the best illustrations I can give you for welding, is to just get a piece of metal like this, not so much as flat metal, as far as using the like a flat piece of plate. You can use plate if that's all you got, and just make stringer beads. Just go or rows. Just make a row here, a row here, a row here. Just try to use up all that metal and then flip it over and get where you feel comfortable using that rod. Then you can gradually start turning your heat back down to weld on thinner metal, which is probably what you're going to have around your shop more often than not. So if you'll log on to Lincoln's website, this is a Lincoln 5P Plus 6010 rod, 1/8 inch size. It actually has 55 pages of instructions on your rod determination of what you're using for what thickness of metal, as opposed to what amper setting on your welder that'll work right for this rod. Now, one thing that's really cool in thinking about, all we're trying to do is connect two pieces of metal together. And it's amazing. You can take a whole semester or multiple semesters at a technical community college to go over just the aspect of welding. There's just so much to it. There's certain processes, certain procedures to do to make sure that your weld is done correctly. This is way too short a video just to have this general concept, just a general brief overview of what we're trying to do is to connect two pieces of metal together. I think there's a wonderful analogy about trying to connect two pieces of metal together from a spiritual concept. I've went into so many different things about the safety protection part of what we're wearing, from our pants, our boots, to the jacket that I'm wearing, my gloves, my shield, and even the process of using the welding rod. How safe is it to use it, and give me warnings on what I should do and should not do. And after all that time that I could go through just in this short video, we prepare ourselves so many things that will only last for just a couple minutes. But some other things that people ask me about, because our welding and our trade is so dangerous. You can be electrocuted, you can catch something on fire, you can burn up. We're working around natural gas, we're working around high pressure steam. There's a lot of different things on any particular day that can kill you. And even when you're working around your shop, that's why all these different things are very safety factors to keep mind of. So people, I ask these questions to them. There's basically 3 questions that we all ask ourselves over the course of our life. Where did I come from? In other words, how did I get here? who made me? Number two, what's my purpose in life? Why am I here every single day that I'm alive? And number three, when I die, where would I go? And so I believe that just like we have this safe use guide for welding rods, I believe that the Bible also has that same dynamic contained within it. Many people in life are trying to figure out exactly how, just like an analogy of trying to connect this piece of metal with each other is, how do I connect with God? In Romans chapter 10, there's a promise in there that God says specifically, he lays out very factual outline on how you can begin a relationship with him. Unfortunately, there's so many different religions, so many different concepts. People give different thoughts. You may hear something on the radio or been to a church one time, heard one particular sermon, but there's usually not an A to Z type of way of looking at something. Not like there's a complete thought of how do I begin this process and how do I actually know how to do this? Well, what happened is in Genesis chapter 1 through 3, when God's first creation, man and woman, disobeyed God, it caused sin to enter the picture. And that's covered in the first book in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 1 through 3. You read through there, you'll see the beginning, how God created man. And that's really the first question that I'd ask is, how did I get here? Well, I believe that there was a designer, an intelligent designer that created me, created you. Also, and the second question is, what's my purpose in life? And I believe that's to honor and glorify my Creator. And what happened was that when Adam and Eve decided to disobey God, it caused sin to come into the picture, and then that broke. Like if I were to take this picture, this metal right here, I've actually got some welds, I've used this metal before, and I were to break this metal off from this particular piece of steel, I have a broken connection with God. And that's where we are right now. We're born with that broken connection with him. And so the same thing that as analogy with the welder, with this welding rod, with a stinger, is that all these are parts that play together in making a weld. God is the power source to my welder. I use an electric welder today. Without that welder being turned on, I have absolutely no power. I cannot make any weld on this steel. There's no power there. And that's the way many people live in their lives, that there's no power because there is no connection to God. God said that if you would believe in my Son, Jesus Christ, I sent him with a specific plan, just like we went through here today. There's a plan on how to weld. There's also a plan contained in the Bible on how you can begin that relationship with God. It's believing that Jesus loved you, that he gave his life to be able to provide that plan to have our sins forgiven, so that all we have to do is believe that who he is, confess that we are sinners, and ask him to come into our life. Then he will connect with us. He will regain and establish a new relationship with us. Just like I'm trying to weld this metal back together right here, is that he will take his own ability spiritually and connect us with himself. In Romans chapter 5, it actually talks about that aspect of sin and what it means, that when Adam sinned, it actually was passed down to every human being living at that point, all the way down to me and down to you. And that's the reason why we have to choose on our own to connect with God. He's waiting there to do that with us. So it's done by facts. There's information in here in this Bible that will lead you to do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my shield on, and I'm actually going to show you by illustration on how I position myself and how I stabilize myself so that you can actually see me running a bead. Hope this video was very effective for you today to give you some general ideas about how to keep yourself safe, how to make some good welding practice beginning as just a brief overview of welding around the shop or at home. And thank you for watching today. God bless you. And more importantly, I hope that you have an opportunity to go through God's Word and see the facts about how you can connect with God also.